Right, so this is the pre-removed 125cc 5-speed Honley engine from the Honley HD3 2016 model that I bought as a non-runner. So first thing to do is see if it'll turn over. Now obviously I probably would have done this with it in the bike, but can't remember. It's been sat for a while, so I can't remember whether it turns over. I can't remember whether it creates a spark or whether it has compression. So let's just see what we can do from there. I think the easiest thing is just to connect the starter up and see if that'll get it to turn over, and if it doesn't, see if we can manually turn it over and go from there. Make sure it's not seized, and if it is seized, then we know it's just going to be a strip down.
Yep.
Right, so I've got the negative wire to a battery, I've got the positive wire to a battery. I'm going to touch it onto the starter motor feed. Well, there's power there, it's trying. The starter motor seems to be throwing the solenoid out to give it a go, but nothing's happening, so the starter motor cannot move the engine. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give it enough leverage to use the kickstart, but that doesn't seem to want to move either, so I'm going to assume at this point that the engine is seized, and I'm going to remove some parts so that I can get to the crank and turn it over from there.
Okay.
Right, I've just spun the engine round so we can remove this access cover. That'll give us access to the crank, which I can just get a socket on there and see if it'll turn. That'll tell me whether or not the starter is seized up and the engine does turn, or whether there's something else worse happening. Right, so this is a 17mm socket that you need for this. I'm just going to try and support the engine and see if I can turn the engine over. No. So that's solid. So that tells me that either the engine has completely seized for some reason, some kind of catastrophic damage, or there's something happened on the gearbox side and it's completely meshed in with the crank or the output shaft on the engine. So we're going to need to do a tear down and see exactly what's gone wrong. Right, so I'm just going to remove this other access cap, which will allow us to see the timing mark through that hole. There's a little notch you can probably just about see. Is there a way to... let's zoom in a second. You can just see the triangle notch poking down, and there is something that you're supposed to line up with that to get it to be in time, so that you can disassemble the engine, without causing any damage. But as it's locked up, we can't do any of that, so we might as well just disassemble it as it is. Right, I'm just going to release or remove these valve or rocker inspection caps or access caps. There we are. The intake valve on this side. Exhaust valve. Then I'm going to take the cam pulley cover off. Which will also give us access to the 5th and 6th cylinder head bolts. There we go. So that's the timing chain and timing chain sprocket for the camshaft. Nothing looks out of play at the moment. It all looks like it's tensioned and in situ, so no clues as to what's gone wrong up to now. Right, so next thing to do, we usually would make sure that this timing mark is lined up with this mark on the outside of the casing. As it's locked, we can't do that. So then you'd usually, once you've got it into position, you'd usually use something on the crank bolt to stop the engine turning over whilst you loosen this bolt, but don't need to do that because the engine is locked up. So that's the camshaft sprocket bolt loosened. Just going to keep that in place for a second, and I'm just going to loosen off the cap for the timing chain tensioner. Oh, well, that was already loose. I wonder what's going on there. And that has loosened the chain somewhat. Then we're going to take the timing chain tensioner itself off, and again these bolts are loose. So someone's been playing around with this engine before I bought it. So there's the tensioner. I'm not too sure what you're supposed to have to do to put tension on this, or to get it to tension up, but that seems completely solid. I mean, if that was in the end there, it wouldn't really make a difference. That looks to all be chewed up inside the thread. Something really not right there. So I would assume that that requires a new tensioner. Let's just remove this spring if we can. Right, so that's the tensioner assembly. So it works on a screw system where you can adjust the tension via a screw from inside the cap, I believe. Well, there should be, that'll be the check valve somewhere. It's just fucking disappeared and lost forever. Right, so it actually is okay. It was just disassembled and put back together wrong. So you can turn this round under spring tension and it will bring the tensioner in, and as you let go it will smoothly come out under spring tension from the screw, and it's not possible to be pushed back in under force. It's only by screwing that you can release the tension. So it's not possible to put too much tension on, and it's only possible to release tension using the screw, and it just applies tension by itself under the pressure of the spring inside. So that is actually operational. It's moving smoothly, so it's good to go. That obviously bolt just goes over the top and seals with a gasket to stop engine oil from coming out. So the tension is okay, and it was working. So yeah, the next thing to do is to finish off removing this bolt, and then we can remove the sprocket for the camshaft, which may need a little bit of a persuasion. It is loose, it's just sat on the end of the shaft. There we are. So just wants to go back on. So should be able to take the chain off at this point, or take the sprocket from the chain. Now we're told to use a wire to hold the chain in place so it doesn't get lost. So I'll just magic a wire out of nowhere. Oh, there we go, we've lost it. Let's see if we can grab ourselves a chain. I did have it. It seems less loose now than it was when I last had it. I don't think we need to worry too much about that. It's more about keeping hold of it when you're reinstalling things. Anyway, so we'll move on to the head bolts. Now these should be loosened half a turn at a time in the correct sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, I've discovered several head bolts to already be loose. That one's not. This one was not at all, so that might not be good for the head. Oh, that one was. It just had a little bit of tension on it. So yeah, any chance of being gentle to the head and reducing chances of it warping have gone out the window because someone's already undone all the bolts. But it's possible that even though they've done that, it's still not warped. I have to check for trueness. Right, so 2 head bolts out, 4 to go. Right, there we are. So, all 6 head bolts off. I'm just going to remove this breather tube because it's going to be just a random part bolted to the head that we don't need on there. It's actually very tight, extremely tight on there. Wow, I think I might leave that for now. Don't want to go slapping anything. If it has to stay on, it can stay on. What else have we got? A loose exhaust bolt. That's just going to end up going in the bin. So the head should come off now. Well, it's feeling very loose. Well, there we go. That's the problem. We've got a slight issue. So, wow, snapped valve. Jesus, it's got a brand new spark plug, never been used. Do you think they put a new spark plug in thinking that might have been the problem? The head is absolutely ruined. Like, this cannot be saved. The whole engine can't be saved at this rate. You'd need a new cylinder head, new valves, new piston, new bottom end assembly. Yeah. It's really not worth saving at the moment. It's going to be head scratch time now because I can't just go and buy a rebuild kit and rebuild the engine because it's got a damaged cylinder head. So it would be a case of trying to find a cylinder head or a spare engine or a donor engine. But looking at the donor engines, the engine, it's based off a Yamaha YBR 125. They're the only ones I can find that are actually available to buy, and the price of a used unit is probably about 3 times what I paid for the whole bike. So this may only be any good to someone who has an engine or wants to do what I was originally going to do with it and turn it into an electric bike. Okay, so engine no go, absolutely knackered, hole in piston, all that good stuff. So I managed to source another engine. It is from a Honley HD2, the same. Apparently it's had a big bore kit fitted, a 150cc. So they've had it running, but it needs a few bits. So first things first, we've got this cable which is cut. So I'm going to have to transfer that over from this one, which is fine. Doesn't have the gear change pedal on it, so I'll just transfer that over from here. The electrics coming out of here seem to be exactly the same and intact. Clutch fork is fine. That clutch cable guide needs to be attached to here. We've got a breather tube here which needs to be attached to there. What else do we have? So there's the kickstarter there which needs to be attached down here, and then we've got a breather up here which will need to be attached onto there. Other than that, we've got the chain tensioner in place. The flange is bare, ready for a carb, same as the other one. On this side, obviously we just took the exhaust off, so there was just a bare flange there, and it's the same here, ready for the exhaust. Other than that, oh, what's the last thing? Yeah, there is this as well. This earth wire which bolts there, that is non-existent on this one, so just transfer that over as well. So we'll do those things now, and then we should be able to bolt a carb to this thing, put a battery on it and see if it'll start up. Right, so I've done everything except I didn't mention this, which I didn't realise. It was the starter feed wire, so that wasn't present on this, so we just took it off there, put a new end on because it was all corroded, fed it through here, and that's everything transferred over. So now we can fit the carb and the ignition system, and should be ready to test. So you should fire up. Right, so there is the carb. It's not looking too great, but everything seems free enough, so as long as we've not got all crustiness inside here and blocked jets, we'll give it a go as it is. If it doesn't work for some reason, or if it looks horrible, I'll have to give it a bit of a clean and a rebuild. Okay, so nice and clean inside actually, it's looking good. Float bell's moving alright. Yeah, the needle is moving freely for the stop. Obviously can't tell whether the jets are blocked or anything, but never does any harm to shoot a bit of brake cleaner through them, or carb cleaner. So I'll do that. I've also got access. Oh, that's a good sign. Right, I'd call that a good one. There's a seal, looks a bit squished, so I'm just going to pick that out and put some sealant in the groove, and then add the seal back in to give it some extra height, so that when we put it back it will clamp shut. While they're clearing the tube out, I'll just smear some in. That's probably enough. Just move some of this around. Don't really want to fill the channel, I just want to have some in there for it to sit on. Shootington. Just use my finger on the inside to get rid of any excess. This sealant is fuel and oil safe, but you just don't want to risk a bit of it falling in and clogging something up. And you don't have to. Right, so place that back in. There's already some sealant squidging out. Just do a very light film with my thumb over the top of the seal, and then that should be ready to screw back on. Give that at least an hour to set before introducing any fuel, and then it'll be a decent seal. I'll do the same thing with this one. clean this plate off, this choke plate. I don't know if that's varnish or rust. Looks more like rust to me. And there's no reason for the varnish to be on this side of the carb, but yeah, it looks like it's a good few damp starts. No idea why it would blow itself up one day. Yeah, not the best, but just give this a bit of a spray down. It's not looking the best. Well, I'll do the same with this seal and then that'll be ready to go back on. And then go with 2 washers. And then do this up with a 10mm. Should be fine. Right, so because we've got the ignition system attached to the frame and also the accelerator cable with the needle for the carb and the loom to plug all the ignition into and stuff like that, we've also got the battery in place and stuff, so we're just going to do a bench start on the floor near the bike. I forgot to swap over this breather, I think it is, so I'm just going to do that, and then we can finally, that's why, because it was connected to the head and the head fell off. I wasn't looking. I'll do that quickly. Oh, she's tight. Jesus. Wow. Feels like it's going to snap. It has snapped. Same with this one. There we are, snapped off. Someone wanted that on tight, didn't they? So, looks like there was a bit of a paper gasket on there, but not got a new gasket, so I'll just use a bit of instant gasket. I just hope this will come off without. Ah, there we go. Nowhere near as bad. I was going to say we can use these bolts, but this one's fine. It's just that one seems to be a hex key. Even though it might work and it might be the right size, I just don't like having 2 different types of bolts. It's not that big of a crime. It'll be hidden once it's fitted to the engine. Oh wow, that's been blanked off for some reason. Strange. Did they not have a breather on this one? I don't know, but we'll open it up and use it. That's what it's there for. could scrape these down and make them absolutely perfect, but it's literally just a breather, so a bit of instant gasket on it and it'll be fine. Just try not to accidentally plug up the hole with the instant gasket. Air. Get rid of the excess. Okay. Was it like that? I feel like it should be like that because it's going towards where all the other breathers are in the airbox. Just in case these threads are different lengths, we'll put the bolts back in where they came from. Just make sure I'm not blocking it. That's clear. So when I do this up, it's going to squish the gasket maker, which means I need to test it again in a second, make sure I can still breathe through it, or it can breathe itself. That doesn't feel too good, but it's tight, so yep, she's good. Right, so carb's on, everything's ready, we just need to connect the fuel and probably blank that off because I'm not too sure what goes to that just yet. Maybe a sensor for the CDI unit, but connect the fuel up, connect the throttle cable, pop the spark plug cap onto the spark plug and plug in the plugs for the ignition feed. Get the start wire plugged in and get our earths on. Apply some power and some fuel. Should see it fire up. Right, so we've got the engine on a tool. Just connected up the HD lead, fuel line. Well, I've filled the float bowl with fuel. Put the throttle cable in. We've got it on a half choke. Just connected up the gear selection status, which confirms we're in neutral. I've not got the key with me, so I've just hot wired it. That's fine, and we're just going to see if it'll start now. So I'll just turn it over. That's with the engine kit on. So just turn it on. It should start providing a spark, and hopefully it'll fire up. Got the throttle working. Wow! I didn't expect it to work straight away. There you go. It's obviously a good runner, and the carb's obviously all right. Let's see if it'll rev up a little bit. Nice. Very happy with that. Okay, right. Well, there's nothing stopping us from shoving it in now. What I might do is just tidy up a few of the little bits that are looking a bit nasty now and are going to be very hard to reach with the engine in. And then I'm not going to fully restore the frame or anything. It's just going to be a case of maybe giving it a dust off and a polish off. Maybe there's no point in jet washing it. That's just going to encourage more rust. But just tidying it up a little bit. Just maybe giving it a quick lick of black frame spray paint, just to sort of help it stay in the condition that it's in now for longer without it deteriorating any further. Then we can get the engine in, get everything that I've bought a new seat for it and a new side panel, new indicator that's broken, and I was trying to get a new chain guard because that looks nasty, but couldn't find one, so I'm going to have to try and clean that up, which obviously I know first thing people would say if I asked people to comment what would work best, they're going to say coke. But we'll try a few things and see what works. And there's just a few things like wiggly handles and rattly nuts and wiggly instruments to tidy up. And there's a bit of damage on the clocks which someone's taped over. Not much I can do about that because I can't find any other clocks, but I can do a better job of that. Maybe seal it up with some Sikaflex and just cover it over, file it down, something like that, who knows. But for now we know it runs, and we've got an engine, so get it back together and get it on the road. Right, so now we know the engine runs, we've removed the airbox and the other box that houses the battery and the starter solenoid. Inside the airbox is what seems to be, if I can open it, a brand new looking air filter, very clean. So we won't need to change that. That looks like it was possibly done just before I bought it. Well, also the old engine had a brand new spark plug in, so I think once it broke, the owner just thought, let's service it and see if that helps, and it clearly didn't. It's not going to repair a hole in the piston, but some more frame exposed now, so I'm going to go over all the rusty bits with a wire brush, dust everything off, give it another lick of paint just to sort of protect the areas that I've tidied up. Try and shine up any bits that should be shiny. Clean up any rusted bolt heads or replace bolts where needed. Just clean up all the plastics. Try and replace any little bits or resecure any little bits that are loose. And yeah, go from there. Okay, so I have done a little bit more. So we've done some wire brushing and removed any loose paint. Just going to be going over this with a rust inhibitor and then a bit of primer and just some chassis black paint. It's not going to be a proper job, I realise, but it's just a quick something to make it look a bit better before it gets put back together. Took the rear shocks off, took the rear wheel off. Just about to, I took the air box off as well, tank and seat. So just got the broken indicator to remove and get ready to fit the new one. And I've got to do the same on this side, which has not been done. And then it can be ready for the next few stages. Come back to you when we get some paint on it. There we are, we're in red oxide primer. So, time for paint. Okay, so here's some black paint down. Looking a lot better already. There we are, that looks a bit better. So what we'll do now is reassemble it back to the point where it just needed the engine putting back in. And just go around and tidy up, polish a few other bits and clean a few other bits that can be cleaned / polished. Not really done anything to the front end yet, but that can be just micro managed. I can just try and get in and do some detailing without stripping it all down. Yeah, so guess we'll do some reassembling. So it's back to the state it was in before disassembled it further. So it's ready for the engine in now. We've got the engine down here. We've got the mounts and the bolts, so we're just going to lift it into position and get some bolts secured and go from there. So I seem to have forgotten to press record on that last bit, but we've got the engine in, so we've got all the bolts tightened up and everything's secure. Put the chain guard, well, the little piece of sprocket guard here, routed the wiring up, connected the battery, connected the starter solenoid. Just missing the toolkit and a little strap for it, but we've got the strap for it, but there's no toolkit, so there's no point in putting that on. Connected up the fuel tank, slid that into place, and from memory it just sits on this mounting point and clips into two forward mounting points. It doesn't bolt down. So I've just got the side panels to go now and the seat, so that should be a fairly easy one. Right, so we are fully assembled. Tension chain. Got 15mm of
free ride or something.
Free stroke, it's called. Tyres might need a bit of pressure in them, but I haven't looked at that. But we can sort that out. They've got enough in to get them down to a garage. We've got some fuel in now. The seat's bolted down. Apparently it's a new old stock seat. I don't know, it looks like it was maybe poorly stored, but it's alright. So, got a few bits to tidy up at the front end. The clutch might need adjusting, but we can see what's what. So, there we go. The fuel sender's working, but telling us it's got a full tank, so it's doing something, but I don't know why it's doing that, because we've not got a full tank. Let's see then if we can start her up. I can't believe how good that engine is at starting. It might need a bit of choke. Well, it does need a bit of choke. So whatever setting we've got the choke at the moment, it's not quite enough. There we go, so that's half choke and it's happy. That's pretty cool. Oh, so we need to check the gears now. So something is happening when I pull the clutch, but it is extremely light on the handle. So I'm going to check that we've got a free wheel. Slip it in first. So that should pull strong, which it does. However, when I dip the clutch in, I should be able to stop it, and I can't. So the clutch needs some adjustment. Oh look, we've even got confirmation that we're in first gear.